We have Vic Raya on with me here tonight. Vic, I really appreciate your time, and we're going to send everybody to your website to begin with. So head over to
VikingCapLLC.com or VikingMultifamily.com. Those are the two ways to get there. Yeah.
Sure, VikingMultifamily.com. I'll make sure to have that link in the show notes and make it clickable so everybody can find it easily there. Vic has a great free 7-day passive investing mini course you can sign up for and take advantage of that. So, Vic, I really appreciate your time here today.
Jack, that's exciting. I know you've interviewed a lot of great folks on your podcast, so I'm excited to add to that wealth of knowledge, if I can, to your listeners.
Yeah, well, you kind of come from a unique perspective, and we're going to kind of bounce around here a little bit. As first of all, Vic is a cardiologist. And so I got to start off with asking, how did you get from cardiology to real estate investing?
A long and interesting road. Wasn't the initial intention. When I was applying to medical school, I didn't think about getting my real estate license or maybe how to learn how to fix and flip homes. I was thinking about, how to fix people's hearts and fix the plumbing there. What I realized was, I think all people, whether they're lawyers, doctors, dentists, or any kind of professional, you want financial freedom, you want multiple streams of income, and you want free time to do what you want. And that's one of the few things in medicine that you're not given. You're not giving a lot of free time. You're not given multiple streams of income. And in a way that actually makes it not as safe as people think. And this is proven true by the pandemic. So what I did was explored other streams of income while I was practicing, including single-family homes, and then eventually settled on multifamily investing because it really attracted me. All the while, I also wanted to learn how to practice medicine the way I wanted to. So I loved cardiology, but I felt like it was too reactive, and I wanted to become proactive. So I essentially learned additional skill sets and created one of the first ever cardiology reversal institutes in Virginia, where we were actually helping people reverse heart disease, reverse diabetes, and essentially cure hypertension. And that was amazing. We did that for a couple of years. And during the pandemic, I was running my real estate company, running my clinic. Two things happened: an opportunity to help coach and mentor physicians all over the country. And the second opportunity was really to take advantage of there's a pause in real estate, and there's opportunities that opened up in multifamily. And so I made the big leap to focus more on multifamily, and essentially, we quadrupled our portfolio in 1 year and really went off to the races. And because COVID had already sort of restricted how I could practice in my clinic, I essentially converted that to more of a virtual clinic, which is still running now.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what are some of the core tenets regarding the heart disease reversal then?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see, I'm going to have to get on my soapbox a little bit in the fact that it seems like we're kind of a pill popping society versus the easy route versus what actually might need to be done.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The way I make it a reference and sort of an analogy is this: think about your body as sort of like a tree. When one of the branches is or is not feeling well, we clip the branch. We tape things together. We try to put some more water on the tree, but really it's the soil. No one looks at the soil. And so as a cardiologist in this new way, which is called functional integrative cardiology, I was literally looking at the function of the tree, of the person. I'd figure out their diet, their nutrition. I look at really advanced biomarkers. I look at advanced genetic testing. I would do tests that are not done in normal hospitals or clinics. And then I would provide supplements and nutraceuticals. I'd create custom protocols for these folks. And essentially, I'd heal the microbiome or the gut. And we'd work on gut-brain connections, gut-heart connections, heart-brain connections. And we do all of this in such a sort of a 360, 100-degree holistic strategy. And we had biomarkers and metrics and data points we were measured along the way. And then essentially in a span of about between 6 weeks to 6 months, most people's heart disease, diabetes, blood pressure, weight, belly fat, all of that would essentially melt away. And so it was really powerful, and I'm really proud of the work we did there. And now we're doing the same thing now in real estate. we're taking an asset and we're going deep. We're figuring out what are the fundamental problems of the asset. Is it management? Is it financial? Is it leasing? Is it getting enough marketing or people to come and tour the asset? Then once we take it over, it's, how do we improve operations? How do we do the renovations? How do we position the asset to really be an aspirational asset? And then how do we maximize NOI, which is net operating income, and take this and reposition this asset in a very quick way using technology, using tenant strategies like food trucks and wellness Wednesdays and CPR classes and artificial technology such as lease rent optimization, which we put into these apartment complexes and essentially achieve rent premiums that most people take 3 years to achieve. We can do it in 6 months.
So, one of the things that you mentioned, I don't want to spend a ton of time on the diet, but you're typically, it sounds like you're really working a lot with similar people like you, high performers, high earners, if you will. There was probably some additional benefits associated with what you're proposing there regarding optimizing their health. Would you say that there was some benefit to optimizing their mindset and the like as well?
So I'm really glad that you brought that up. So what I've been able to do in the last few years is essentially take all my passions and turn them into companies and brands that essentially up-level people in health, wealth, and mindset. So I have a company called the Vitology Institute that really helps up-level people. Initially, I was taking care of sick people who wanted to really recover. I've moved that more into, we've evolved into more of a biohacking, human optimization, and anti-aging company where literally we work with people like the listeners of this podcast who they go to their traditional doctor. Their doctor tells them they feel good, but they feel okay, but then they know there's more, but there's nothing to be had from the traditional system. Then they may have a trainer, they may not. They probably have done a couple of diets here and there, but they've sort of quote unquote maxed out. For me, that's just a scratching the surface of their capabilities. My goal is, how do I make them a 100-year Olympian? Meaning, at the age of 100, can they do some kind of extreme athletic activity? Can they be there for their great grandkids? Can they enjoy life in their 70s, 80s, and 90s like they did in their 30s and 40s? And the goal is, if you're working so hard to create this real estate income on this wealth and multiple streams, why not have a longer trajectory to enjoy that? And the reason I've learned this is because I've studied blue zones. I've been to many of the blue zones in the world, and these are places where people consistently live beyond 100 years of age. And those strategies and techniques, along with cutting edge technology, advanced biomarker, as well as hormones, peptides, all these things all together in sort of a stepwise protocol that's customized for each individual, we're able to help these high performers achieve sort of greatness and success. And I'm doing that now in mindset with a lot of my high performance coaching clients, where they want to start a real estate company, they want to add multiple streams of income in their current medical practice, they want to go into politics and do a career switch. But how do they do that? Well, first they got to get clear in their mind how to do that, and then we reverse engineer the whole process. And then they say it's 80% psychology, 20% mechanics. Everyone knows how to do many things, but the why and the horsepower and the gusto to overcome the resistance and the plateaus we all experience in life, that's, I think, the secret sauce. And then finally, obviously, we have Viking Capital, my real estate company, where we help so many people achieve retirement level net worth and incomes in a short amount of time, because we believe in wealth without Wall Street. Wall Street's important, but I think there's a way to create multiples of wealth without Wall Street, and that's what our company Viking Capital does.
So, and I got one more question regarding the health aspect of this. I actually, whether you liked it or not, would like it or not, I actually stuck on keto for a solid year. And it was just the mental clarity that came with it was like actually the most surprising aspect of it. Unfortunately, it lasted a year, which is, I'm happy with that, but unfortunately I fell off the rails. Like, what type of motivation or what do you need to do in order to stay motivated enough. The mental clarity, the weight loss, everything apparently wasn't enough for me to just stay focused on that winning path. How do you keep people going?
Yeah, my new motto recently has become: if it's not sustainable, it won't be successful. So I think a lot of these things you have to figure out, what can I actually incorporate long term in my own diet and lifestyle strategy, and what can I sustain and maintain. And so, what I love is these strategies that fundamentally change how you think, because once you do that, then you change who you are and who you become. So the keto was a means to an end. But if it helped you actually re-engineer your thought process to food, that's a different process. So I would say that was just one piece of the pie. But the moment a lot of people leave keto, they go back and really regain a lot of what they've lost. So I would say, let's figure out something that's much more sustainable. Let's find a diet that you can do, whether you're traveling, you're at a real estate conference, you're on vacation with your friends and family. What's something that you can do literally 85 to 90% of the time? And that's repeatable, doable, and then eventually scalable, where you can say, okay, I've done level 1, level 2, and level 3. And then what's the complementary thing? So let's do 5 things right now for your listeners. Here's a challenge. Here's the Dr. Vik Raya challenge right here. If you do these 5 things, you'll have more success in real estate and everything else in life. Number 1, get your 10,000 steps in. Number 2, get your 6 to 7 hours of sleep. Number 3, 3 liters of water a day. Number 4 is following some sort of diet. And if you're not sure what to follow, there's plenty of them out there, but there's something called Whole30 is a good one that is very realistic. It's essentially 70% of your plate is fresh fruits and vegetables, and 25% is either a healthy source of protein such as meat, or some other vegetarian protein if you want. But it's essentially what we call Pegan diet, paleo plus vegan. And it's one of my mentors, Dr. Mark Hyman, came up with that strategy. So then finally, it's going to be your workouts. If you don't do strength training, if you're a man or a woman, any age after 20 up till the age of 90, you should be strength training at least 2 to 3 times a week. Why? It builds bones. It strengthens your bones. Number 2, it builds muscle. Number 3, increase your metabolism. Number 4, prevents any kind of injury and things like that. So if you did those 5 things, weight training, that nutritional strategy, the walking, the water, and the sleep, you're set.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you giving those tips. So getting back to the real estate investing, one thing that I really noticed is that when you were dealing with the COVID lockdowns and everything, you said you then focused on your real estate investing and you quadrupled your business. Isn't that amazing how that works, where when you focus on something like that, it starts to grow?
So I want to share with your audience 2 concepts that literally fundamentally changed my life, and they're called ELF versus HAF. ELF is easy, lucrative, and fun. HAF is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. And so I'm not saying the medical clinic was hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating, but it was more of a challenge, right? I had to, I was not in the insurance-based system, and I was helping people really convert their health into a better way. But there was sort of an enrollment process I had to do. And it's interesting, like to convince someone to invest $5,000 to reverse their diabetes. You'd think that's a worthy goal, and it was. But I can convince someone to invest $500,000 into a multifamily apartment complex. It would take me 20 minutes, and they'd invest $500,000 into my complex. That same person, if I ask them to invest $5,000 into the health, they're like, "Oh, does insurance cover this? Oh, does it like can you guarantee results?" And so I realized that, unfortunately, in the United States, people value wealth over their health. And so that's one reason why I just found it very easy to scale my real estate company. Number 2, I had a team. I had a small team in the medical side of things, but I really was able to develop a large team, and I was able to do something very quickly. So I believe in LGS, leverage, growth, and scale. When you can do LGS to any company or business, you can explode your wealth in a short amount of time. And so we went from owning 2 or 3 assets to owning 20, 25 assets all over the country. We went from $50 million of real estate that we've acquired to $650 million in a short span of 3 or 4 years. And so we just got named Inc. 5000 fastest growing company, Viking Capital. So what that tells me is figure out in your thing. I mean, sometimes your dreams are not your destiny. And so I always want to be involved in health and fitness and wellness. That's who I am. It's part of my DNA. But what's going to retire me is most likely the real estate.
We mentioned earlier that it seems like you're attracting those higher income workers, whether it's doctors, nurses, people that are already kind of in your field. Are they also looking for strategies to save on their taxes and a few other things? Like, what are some of the other benefits that your partners are seeing by joining with you here?
So, as we grow our investor base, our goal is to educate them, empower them, really provide that kind of high quality service that sometimes is lacking in sort of the multifamily industry, and really, treat them, with respect. And once they understand, hey, look, this is a true vehicle that can help me, my family, and grow our wealth, and really become tax efficient. And so, like, for example, if someone invests $100,000 in one of our investments, normally they get about a $90,000 tax break at the end of that year. And so that's unheard of in other assets and investments. So I have people from Silicon Valley who invest with us, and the only reason they invest is they don't even care about the returns I provide, the distributions, the cash flow. They just using it for the tax loss harvesting. And so it's so interesting, what motivates folks. But I say go for all three. Get the appreciation, get the cash flow, get the depreciation, and at the end we can always do something like a 1031 exchange, which take the full profits of what you're doing and essentially roll it over to another deal and delay that tax event.
And earlier you mentioned the lease rent optimization. What are some of the other strategies? It sounds like are you building new properties, or are you primarily acquiring? And is it a value add situation where you're trying to make use of, like you mentioned, the lease rent optimization and a few other things?
So our core strategy is a value add strategy, and it's sort of a proven business plan. And what we're doing is we started off, buying C-class assets and improving them to like sort of a B level, and that was sort of a good way to get into the business. Now we're in the business, and we realize that there may be slightly more cash flow in the C-class properties, but there's also a higher a risk tenant profile, which is a little more challenging to deal with, and it's more management intensive and heavy. Also, the appreciation that we get on the B class, you don't see as much on the C class. So you can get it, but it's really more forced, and that organic appreciation, which we all want to see, sometimes is not there. So we've graduated to more Bs and As, and we're buying bigger deals. So we're buying 200 to 400 unit deals pretty much all over the country, mainly in the Sun Belt. And our strategy is this: we go in, we want to rebrand and relabel the property. So we have our own brand called Elevate, and then we say Elevate at whatever that location or name is. We try to up-level the tenant base. So slowly we're bringing in tenants who want to rent by choice, not by necessity. Number 3, we are providing a suite of tenant services that are now standardized across all our apartment complexes. And these are like Wellness Wednesdays. These are, food trucks. These are book bags for kids. There's all this little, there's a job search. Like if they lose their jobs, there's like a concierge person that helps them find a job. All of this is now included in the tenant services. Then on top of that, we normally when we come in, we try to, if there's some loss to lease or some organic or rent growth we can do, we do that first. Then we do amenities outside, so they really see that we're investing in their communities. Then we go in, and if there's some interior value adds, we go ahead and do a really nice premium interior value add, and we make sure this is proven out by what the competition is doing. So it's not like we're just testing the waters. This has already been proven out. And we do this in a very seamless fashion. So in the first 18 months, there's a rapid infusion of capital, operational improvement, efficiencies, and pretty much you on the NOI curve, you see a big hockey stick, and then it sort of plateaus at that point. And then that's where we decide, hey, do we refinance? Do we hold it for some more cash flow? Do we sell it? So this is how we rapidly increase the value of the property using organic and forced appreciation, and get it ready for that potential exit.
You mentioned building these teams. It sounds like these projects are going to require boots on the ground in those markets. What are some of the lessons you've learned in scaling your business to this level?
One, you need a business operating system. So no matter what type of business our listeners are in, they need to start thinking about how to operate at like institution or like a big corporation, even though they may be 2 or 3 people or 5 people, even 10 people. So what we started doing was, we read books like, E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Then we read books like, Traction by Gino Wickman, or Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, and started implementing these business systems and principles into our companies. We also then learned how to hire the best of the best. We use a strategy called the 4A strategy to hire somebody. They have to have appearance, ambition, aptitude, and attitude. And really, those 4 are very key. I also use something called a DISC score, DISC score, to hire somebody. I know what personality type. So if they're director of finance or comptroller, they need to have a high SC, which is more analytical. If they're a person who needs to be out there talking to investors, they need to have a high I. And that's our director of investor relations. So we're starting to be very scientific in how we hire. And then finally, we have a methodology called WHO, which is by the similar book title by G.H. Smart. And it's one of the number one hiring books and methodologies in the world. It's what Goldman Sachs uses, it's what Blackstone uses to hire their people. And so we've implemented that, which is there's not just a single interview, there's multiple layers of interviews to bring someone on. They have to go through multiple tiers, because the most expensive thing you can do is have turnover in your company. And so they hire slowly, fire quickly.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And I would imagine, it kind of goes back to the finding that diet that works for you. It's interesting that you've kind of a la carte. You mentioned E-Myth and Traction and a few other books and systems. It sounds like you're picking and choosing, or a la carte, those items that fit your business and your end goals.
Yeah. The interesting thing is I'm across 3 different spheres of kind of industry. There's a mixing of ideas and crossing of strategies. And so some things that seem to work in the health and wellness space, I brought into real estate. Things that work in real estate sometimes are brought into mindset and coaching. And it's a flow of different ideas. And you take the best of the best and see what works and discard the rest. And so, yeah, that's a keen observation on your part.
Well, one of the things too that I think is kind of interesting is that it's obvious that when you ingest some of these books and these material, you implement. I've run into quite a few people that talk about how many books they read or how many books they listened to, but then in the end, it seems like that's where it begins and ends. There's no ingestion and no application.
Yeah, knowledge without utility or action is worthless. And so we're all guilty of this sometimes. We're seminar junkies, love to go to the seminars and conferences, shake some hands, get some business cards, and do nothing with it. Or we read all the audiobooks or the podcasts, and it's like shelf help kind of thing, but it's doesn't really translate into success. And so it's almost like it's a perverse form of procrastination. You don't want to do something, but you have enough action to where it appears to be you're doing something. And so what I say is, don't read 28 books in 1 year. Read the one book 28 times until you actually execute and implement on it.
Right. One of the things that was in your bio that I read about was something called the 5 freedoms. Could you touch on that a little bit? It stood out to me, and I wanted to make sure we had a little time for that.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. During COVID, it was really a tough time for me, to be honest with you. I mean, you're hearing me now on the tail end of it when, I figured some things out. But in the middle of it, I was actually at an existential crisis. I'll tell you why. My identity was a physician. It was a cardiologist. And so I already rocked that identity by going from traditional practice, private practice, to doing things where it's more, not the norm in medicine, which is trying to reverse disease and taking care of nutrition and fitness and, doing things, outside of the typical scope of a classic physician. Then during the COVID, I'm not even allowed to do that because I had to shut down physical locations. And so then translating that into, should I go into, I thought real estate was just a side hustle. And then to make it my main thing, that was a huge mindset shift. And then I didn't I thought I had to be old and gray to coach, people. And I was like, all right, maybe, but people were coming to me. I was like, is this an opportunity or is it a distraction? And so I was like, how do I take all of this and figure out what is my North Star? What is my compass? And so what I figured out was, what am I really chasing? I fear I'm chasing freedom, but really, is there just one flavor of freedom? And I realized there's like actually multiple freedoms I'm chasing. So that's when I came up with the concept of sort of the 5 freedoms. Number 1 is financial freedom. And more than that, it's really a financial abundance, right? Want it to be where like I don't think about money as a restriction in anything I do. Number 2, there's no point having a lot of money if you don't have the free time to actually enjoy it or utilize it in the most powerful way. So time freedom. Number 3 is, as I started progressing outside of a physical clinic and said, now I can work from anywhere, this virtual lifestyle, how far can I take it? Do I really have location independence, location freedom? So I wanted that too. And since I'm at it, might as well get the other 2 freedoms, which is like a bulletproof mindset, a resilient mindset to where, someone passes away, relationship issues, economic issues, whatever can come my way, I can withstand it and persevere. And finally, I want to have the energy to literally accomplish whatever I want, experience whatever I want, and just have a legendary life. To have energy is very rare. And I think energy is the highest form of currency. And it's the horsepower you need to live a legendary and epic life. And so I was like, let me get that too. So I wanted those 5 freedoms. And so now when I make a decision, I ask, is it taking me toward those 5 freedoms or taking me away from it? If it's taking me toward it, it's a hell yes. If it's taking me away from it, then I have to pause, reconsider, have to pass on it.
Wow, that's very impactful. I really appreciate you sharing that. And one of the things that you said earlier that really stood out to me, and I think this is something that, as you mentioned, real estate initially was possibly a side hustle. I think a lot of people don't almost see it as a hobby, if you will, instead of treating it as the business that it actually is, and being that entrepreneur that's required to be in that. You mentioned you looking through it in the lens, whether it's an opportunity or a distraction when it came to your coaching. I wish most of us would do that. I have a feeling that we have this shiny object syndrome, and we're always chasing multiple rabbits.
Yeah. So what I found is if I have this belief that anything I touch turns to gold, but I have to touch it long enough, and I can only touch one thing at a time. So you're hearing me talk about multiple companies, but this essentially was a sequential success. So I started the health and wellness thing first. Then, actually I started that real estate first and progressed from single family to multifamily, kept that going, started this health and wellness, and then finally the coaching. But, and then in terms of what is my alpha business is really using that elf versus half mentality. What is easy and lucrative fun to our listeners here? And I challenge to the listeners here. The number 1 challenge is find out your elf business and double down on that and delay everything else. And, no is the most powerful vocabulary that you will find in the 2022. If you say no to most things and say yes to very few, you will literally double your wealth, your free time, and your peace of mind.
Very neat. So with all of that being said, I wanted to remind everybody, VikingMultifamily.com. I'm going to make sure to have that link in the show notes. And usually we start to go into rapid fire, Vic. Kind of warned you some of those were coming. But I wanted to spend a little time on that unbeatable mindset you were talking about earlier. And because you have a goal of hitting the elusive $1 billion in acquisitions in 3 years. A lot of people are stuck, or they start in that single family home, and it's kind of a slow progress. You have been dealing with some huge amount of capital and $1 billion in acquisitions. I mean, I haven't frankly run into anybody with that goal on my show yet, let alone achieve that level. Like, how do you maintain that level, that mindset, in order to work at the level that you are?
It's to have a blissful dissatisfaction. So if you're so dissatisfied then you're so distraught that you're not going to really be at peace when you're moving forward. But then if you're totally relaxed and chilling and you're ready for Jamaica every day, then you don't have the drive to even, work hard. So it's this sweet spot, which, I like to call this blissful dissatisfaction, where you're so grateful for everything around you. You're just like, I can't believe this is my life. But then you're like, is there more inside me? Can I even be more? Can I do more? Can I help more? Can I have more income, and can I have more impact? Right? Because at some point, there's enough dollars to where you're like, all right, I don't need any more in my life. It's more like, can I have more magnitude and amplitude of helping people? Instead of ROI being return on investment, it's like ripple of impact. How much ripple of impact can you have? And I noticed that when I'm more wealthy, I'm more generous. I'm able to change people's lives in a dramatic way. I'm able to, create magical experiences for my family. I'm able to donate to tremendous amount of charities. I'm able to, create surprises in people's lives. And I just feel more happier, because I've created abundance, and then abundance leads to abundance. So if you're abundant in your finances, then maybe it will also spill over into your health and your relationships and everything else. So I say, take it all, have your cake, eat it too. Don't slow down, but enjoy the journey along the way, and then keep challenging yourself, because what happens is success without fulfillment is ultimate failure. So you want to definitely feel it when you hit his goals, but then have the next goal ready. Otherwise, I know a lot of people who've sold their companies, who've done all these amazing things, and then they're depressed, or they're like, sort of like, now what? Like, I don't have meaning in my life.
In our society, we're kind of in a world where people are always looking for, they want to have some more of a purpose in their life. And it sounds like you took a different approach. Instead of finding that purpose, you kind of built that purpose. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, once I get clear, like I know exactly what I'm chasing. Like I know exactly what my goal is for this year, for the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. I know who I want to help along the way. I know how I want to show up in the world. I know what kind of father I want to be. I want to know what kind of husband. I want to help my church or my religious communities. It's all clear. And it's by getting that. If you ask 95% of the people walking around, what exactly do you want? You're going to get a blank stare or like I don't know, or some nebulous answer. Being ambiguous with your goals, or being like not specific with your goals, that's the cry of death. Like you got to be very clear, because if the genie or the world, the universe or God can give you whatever you want, you have to declare it though, and be very specific with it. And when you do that, you actually make traction and move toward it.
Okay. Wow. Well, Vic, I'm going to throw a couple rapid fire questions at you if you're ready.
Let's do it.
So, first of all, everybody on the show so far has had a real estate investing myth they'd like to bust. What's yours?
You don't have to start with single family to go to multifamily.
Yeah, and you're not the only one who has mentioned that. There is something to be said about that. I have actually found, I don't have huge complexes such as yours, but in hindsight, we have a small 12-plex in an area. That frankly takes as much work as one of my single families to close and get it going. So
yeah, you'll probably easier to get a loan too. Yeah, I taught a neurosurgeon and a critical care doctor who had zero real estate experience, and they did some sort of co-sponsored projects. But then when they got their first deal, it was essentially a $10 million deal. Again, they don't even own their primary home, for goodness sake. And they did this in about 18 months, from no knowledge of multifamily and not much knowledge of single family even, to doing their first deal. So it's really faith. I have to reference a book here. It's our good friend Hal Elrod in his book Miracle Equation. Extraordinary faith plus unwavering faith plus extraordinary effort. If you combine those two, you can create these modern day miracles.
Well, one of my standard questions is like, what book would you recommend everybody checking out? But you've peppered this episode with a number of books. I think it's going to give more than enough people busy, and I'm going to try to go through the episode and make sure I accredit each one of those so that they know which ones that you referenced. You've had a number of businesses now. Your concept of everything will turn gold if you focus on it long enough. I mean, that is one of those things that I think is going to stick with me for quite a while, Vic. But what is one of the biggest business mistakes you've made, and how did you pull out of it?
Partnerships, choosing poor partners. When we went from like our first real estate project as our own as our own multifamily deal, we wanted to get a bigger deal. It was a $35 million deal. We didn't have the credit or the liquidity or the net worth to buy it. So we brought partners. And these partners were in our sort of real estate mastermind, and they were people who taught asset management. They reputable in the industry. And you would think that would be, enough vetting to bring someone on, but it was one of the worst partnerships we ever had. And it really slowed us down, and it caused us a lot of stress. That being said, our investors still produced a profit. We did fine on the deal, but we could have done a lot better, and we would have had a lot more enjoyment of the process. But because of that mistake or that learning experience, I learned a tremendous amount to where it has made us, more wealth, acquired us more assets in a safer way, in a better way. And so pay for other people's mistakes by getting mentorship and coaching, and then make your own. And when you make your own, learn from them and don't ever repeat them, and you're on your way to superb high level.
Well, and if you could go back into time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Start sooner, start earlier, be more aggressive.
Sure. Well, Vic, this was great. One more time, Viking, take advantage of the free course there. But Vic, is there a question or concept you wish we would have covered here tonight?
No, I love the fact that people, listen to your show and they're gaining a lot of knowledge. I would say, hey, go back, maybe listen to your top 5 episodes, find the 5 action items of those 5 episodes, and do one thing to inch yourself toward your goals, because you're worth it and you can do it. And we believe in you here.
Well, VikingMultifamily.com. Again, that's VikingMultifamily.com. Make sure you click on that link and take advantage of the free training there. But Vic, I really appreciate you being on the show, and I hope you'll come back again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.